treat today, I promise you. One of the things that I dearly loved when I was guiding elk hunters out there in the mountains, that I'd always stop at this little hole in the road shack there on the north side of Silver City, New Mexico. They had the best homemade tortillas I ever eat in my life.
I love a homemade tortilla, but I always assumed, yeah, there's probably like a lot of work in it, and it's probably like a technique that you have to be born into it. It's pretty easy. If a little Irish girl can do it and pull it off as maybe authentic, I think we're on something good.
So, that's all that goes in this?
No.
All the dry?
There's more. And it's kind of the trick. 1/4 of a cup of shortening. Next thing is, that's really good that I found out. 1/4 of a cup of bacon grease. So I just made some bacon last night, and then I reserved the grease. Don't use hot grease where it's still liquid. You want to let it congeal and cool. Just start mixing it, and I start like chopping it with this spoon. Let go of your spoon, then get your hands in it, because that's when you're going to start really breaking it up. Feeling like, let's just find some of those big chunks and let's just break those up. That's why you need to get your hand in it so you can feel it.
So you're just
and that's what makes it authentic.
Want it to be not like a cracker crumb.
No, not like as thin as a cracker crumb consistency, but just kind of like crumbly, and making sure those big old chunks are consistently broken up throughout it. We're gonna add our liquid. It's a cup of water, but it has to be hot water. That's another key deal. If you wanna get that going, it doesn't need to be boiling. You don't need to put it on the stove. Just let it run out of the faucet to get nice and hot. What that's gonna do is that gonna start help melting in and mixing in the lard and grease. We're adding a cup of hot water to that until that liquid absorbs. You say goodbye to the spoon.
For good?
Let's get into it. This is when I'm starting to circle around the bowl and picking up any of those loose and just working it in there. So we're just trying to get it all, and it feels good because it's warm dough. If you need to add just a tad more water, you can, which I might. Little flour on your board here. We're going to knead it for about 2 minutes.
Well, that's still warm.
Yeah, I know, it's nice. Just getting all of that incorporated. You can add a little more of this flour that you're using from your board if it's a little too sticky. Go ahead and feel that and tell me what you think.
Very soft, very pliable.
We're gonna wrap it up, and then we're just gonna let it set for about 10-15 minutes. So like, gather its thoughts, get ready to make tortillas. Reflour your surface pretty well. And then what I like to do is I'm going to take this out and I'm put it on the floured surface. I'm going to cover it with a little flour, and then I'm just going to do a few flips, because as it sets, it builds a little more moisture. And so I'm just going to take some of that away. It's easier to handle. Usually I'm very gentle with dough because we make a lot of biscuits and stuff. Tortilla dough is very forgiving. You don't need to worry about like being gentle or anything. You can like really get into it and it's not going to hurt. So we're going to roll it into like a loaf looking deal. I'm going to start pinching off tortilla balls. So you're just going to pinch them off, and I guess like maybe a little bit bigger than a golf ball size, roughly. I mean, it just depends on how big you want your tortilla. So I'm gonna do this and just roll it. And then what I do is I just flatten it just a tad.
Sort of like a cookie.
Yeah, so it looks like a cookie, about the size of your palm maybe. And just set it to the side. This makes about 12 to 14, depending on how big you're making your tortillas. What's great about this recipe too is you can easily double it, and you can save the dough. You can wrap it and refrigerate it and use the rest later.
You can put it in the ice box.
Yeah.
But and then let it come to room temperature before you use it again?
Yeah.
All right. Then you just take them right here and just keep rolling around till you make sure them edges are sealed. Okay?
Oh, okay.
And then you
let's cover them so they don't dry out anymore. And so flour your surface and just go ahead and lay it down there. This is the part that's probably the only part that takes a little practice, rolling it out just to getting it into a perfect circle. So I'm gonna flour my rolling pin a little bit, and I'm just gonna go in all directions and roll it out into a circle as close as you can. As you're rolling it out, flip it. Because it's not sticky, it's not going to stick to the surface.
Biscuit dough or pie
No,
dough.
which is really nice.
It's gonna make
And if
a
you
burrito.
like flip it again. You want to get these as thin as humanly possible. It's going to be like as close to paper thin, and you're going to think like, oh no, this is too thin, it's going to tear. The dough is really sturdy dough, so and don't be afraid to like push down. I don't know if you guys can see this.
It's shrinking.
And it'll want to pull in, but like, see how thin that is?
Pretty thin.
It's really thin. You're going to think like, oh geez, I'm going to break it,
that
but
is good.
it's not. So as thin as possible.
So it's not like the video the Three Stooges did years ago when they was making tortillas and they did them with an iron.
I would not trust the Three Stooges in any kind of cooking.
Get busy. Separate 2 eggs.
My large cast iron skillet over a medium-high, close to high heat. It's going to take a little spray butter here. You can use grease, you can use olive oil, you can use butter. Lay it down there. When it starts to bubble up, it gets pretty good even amount of bubbles around it, then I like to flip it. So I'm just going to pick it up and I'm going to flip it again. And see, I'm starting to get a little bit of color here. And I like to press these down. You don't want to overcook them. Then they get crispy. I like to have a really soft tortilla. So you want just a light brown color. And not all over. You just want it light brown in those spots and those bubbles that are picking up. Once your skillet gets nice and hot, maybe a minute per side. I don't even think you're going to make that. I'm going to call this. It's going to see that? See, it's just a light brown. I like it.
How about you just place them in my warm hands and I'll eat them?
What do you think? We've done a few.
Well,
Let's do a beauty shot.
they're missing something. Something's wrong.
What?
Oh, they ain't got no meat in them.
Well, try a little bite. Tell me what you think. You know what I love too? Like with these, you can smell them. They smell like tortillas.
That is some fine eating there, honey.
Like I was just saying, we don't necessarily want them perfectly round because then when people see it, they're like, oh, that's legit. You did that.
For an Irish girl,
I do a pretty good tortilla.
you're all right. Look, I thought this was some process that went
Well,
through
so
maybe
did
overnight.
I. No,
Overnight.
really easy. The hardest part, I think, is just rolling them out into a perfect circle.
And the secret is what?
Bacon grease.
That is right.
Be sure to subscribe. We've got lots of tips.
But God bless you each and every one, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to stop by and see me and Shan. And we don't take it for granted, I promise you. So hope you have a good evening. You ain't got to go to the store and buy no more of these in a plastic sack. You can make them at home. Thank you, my love.
You're welcome. Can you do like a little Mexican dance?